Hello and welcome back to Skepticus. Today we are diving into a piece of internet filth that comes from our good buddy, Frank Turek. I'm just going to call it the hatiest hate that Christians ever hated. So without trying to explain this in advance, let's just get into this video.
Now, and anyway, one of the three apparently is this couple, this same-sex married couple of men with two sons. And Christians came out online and basically pointed out that I don't think this is something you ought to be doing as a Christian couple, is trying to normalize same-sex relationships. And in fact,
okay, so that's the first place I have to jump in. This whole idea that just having these people on a TV show is normalizing it is patently absurd and absolutely hateful. Now, it's one thing to say, hey, if we want to have them in our church and we don't believe in this as a church, then for our church, this would be normalizing it. But guess what? Gay people exist. You can call it normalizing it all you want, but they have been normal for hundreds and thousands of years. Now you may have ostracized them according to the hateful dogma that's in your crappy holy book, but that doesn't change the fact that gay people are normal people. And to imply otherwise is exposing your rotten, festering core of a religion.
the same-sex couple on the program basically said that they're excited about being on the program to make their relationship and relationships like this more acceptable, more normal in American society. Anyway, Christians came out very hard against Chip and Joanna.
Imagine that. Christians came out very hard with their pitchforks and their torches in a hateful mob. Who'd have thunk it?
And I think probably in many cases they went over a line in their criticism. I mean, you can correct people without being an obnoxious scold, okay? And I want to give Chip and Joanna the benefit of the doubt, but I'm also going to point out that I think what they're doing here is wrong. Anyway, what happened?
Yes, he thinks that having a gay couple on a television show is wrong. Because according to him, and according to many, many Christians who hold with a literal translation of the Bible's sexual purity laws, he believes that these people should not be seen. Pay attention to what he's saying. And this is consistent with so much of the rest of Christianity here. He wants you gay people back in the damn closet. This is so consistent with the way that so many Christians treat this. To be clear, I will put the disclaimers out there. Of course, this is not all of Christianity. We've seen a big schism since gay marriage was approved in this country. And there are denominations that are splitting off, and there are Christians that are choosing sides. And I'm not saying that this is all of Christianity, although I will tell you this. If you want to read the scriptures literally, it is not very favorable at all to any kind of same-sex relationship. Now, there is some nuance to it that most Christians don't want to dive into and they don't want to admit. It's not nearly as black and white as they would have you believe. But despite some of my liberal friends who will try to tell you that, no, the bans in the Bible are against pedophilia and they're not against homosexuality, that's incorrect. Despite some people claiming that this is part of an old law that doesn't apply anymore, I mean, that's just in the eye of the beholder. There are incredible inconsistencies in the Bible on this matter, and there are over-the-top inconsistencies with the way that Christians pick and choose their morality around this issue. But the simple fact is that it doesn't take much searching to look through the Bible and find the hatred right there in the pages. But this crap that he's talking about is consistent with the way that so many Christians address this issue. They don't want anyone to ever be doing this in their bedroom, even if it has no impact on them whatsoever. But if it has to happen, they want you in the damn closet. They want you right back in 1962. They want to know that nobody ever has to see a gay person on TV, and no one ever wants to know that there are gay people in their town. And they want to be able to carry on their blissful, hate-filled life with their head stuck way up their Christian backside, knowing that they never have to be confronted with the horrible, dirty, awful truth that there are gay people out there in the world. If they can't get rid of you with gas chambers and pitchforks, at least they can try to beat you back into a closet where they will never have to think or deal with you again.
As a result of this, is that Chip put out a tweet that went like this after all this criticism they got for doing this program. He said, and it's abbreviated, it might be a little hard to understand, but anyway, he said, talk, ask questions, listen, and maybe even learn. Too much to ask of modern American Christian culture. Judge first, understand later / never. It's a sad Sunday when non-believers have never been confronted with hate or vitriol until they are introduced to the modern American Christian, unquote. So that was his response, and several people tried to ask what I say in some of them in a very kind way. Chip, that doesn't cut it. In fact, Becket Cook, I don't know if you know who.
Of course that doesn't cut it, because there's nothing an American Christian loves more than judging the hell out of everyone. And to even imply that they would take this judgment away from you basically means that you're taking some of the most fun aspects out of Christianity for most people.
Becket Cook was a same-sex attracted man for many years. He may still be, as far as I know, but he was working in Hollywood, in the Hollywood industry, as a same-sex attracted, actively gay man.
As a same-sex attracted, yeah, it's just called a gay man. You don't have to keep pulling out this huge term of same-sex attracted. He was and is a gay man.
Here's what Becket said to Chip Gaines's tweet that I just read. He said, respectfully, Chip, that doesn't work. You can't platform a gay family on your show, further normalizing it and cry foul. You're intentionally or unintentionally leading many astray.
This is such a sick example of the Christian mindset. The idea that if there are two gay people on a television show that you are platforming, first of all, it's incredibly dishonest and disingenuous. That has nothing to do with what platforming is. Platforming does not simply mean that someone of a certain ilk somehow gets on a platform. Platforming means that somebody who already has a very large platform essentially allows that person to come on and spew their views or sway people in their favor, when in fact the platform may be out of proportion with the support this person or this idea actually has. In other words, if you had someone with a very large platform, imagine that it was Alex O'Connor, and he just has a gay couple come on his show, and he just gives them an hour to just talk and doesn't ask them any hard questions about, well, what do you think this says about Christian beliefs, or do you think this is consistent with Christianity? But he just lets them talk however they want. That would be platforming. But this is a television show where people are put in this faux environment where they're supposed to be acting like they're in the 1800s. And it's not like every single instant that they are on camera, they are advocating for everyone to have a gay lifestyle. Not that that would even be that big of a deal, but to call this platforming exposes the desires of the people that would throw around such a term. Because I'll say it again, if you think that having a gay couple just on a TV show somehow qualifies as platforming them, it's because you would prefer that they simply be in the closet. You want them out of sight and out of mind so that you don't ever have to deal with the fact that the entire world is not hetero like you. And it's really disgusting that he pulls up this example of this individual who apparently is gay and decided to become Christian, which is fine. I've had gay friends that are Christian and have converted to Christianity, and that's fine. I personally think it's a little misguided, but there's all kinds of personal bias when I say that. If you find value in Christianity, then fine, be Christian. But the idea that you're gay and then you decide to be Christian shouldn't mean that you're then given some added voice with which to shout down other gay people in a public environment.
Of course, we need to love our gay neighbors, but we also need to tell the truth. This is how I was led to the Lord, not by squishy Christians, but by loving Christians who told me the truth.
This is such a disgusting concept. Of course, we love our gay neighbors, but we also have to tell them the truth. If your religion says that old white guys all burn in hell and you move in next door to me, do you have a responsibility to come over and tell me that as an old white guy, I'm going to burn in hell? If you think that you have that responsibility, it's because your religion is disgusting and revolting. The idea that you love your gay neighbors, but we need to tell them that they're in sin and they're going to hell is one of pure, unadulterated hatred and bigotry. And the only people that don't understand that are the hateful bigots themselves. I don't care what you are doing in your home. If it is not hurting anyone else, if it is between consenting adults, even if I don't like it, even if it disgusts me, as long as it is between consenting adults, not only should you have every right to do it, but I have no right whatsoever to come over and bang on your door and tell you that you're going to hell, or to try to get you taken off of TV programs, or to try to shout down the people who would have the nerve to put you on a TV program. That is just a disgusting position, and it just exposes the pure hatred of this doctrine.
Unquote. Indeed, Beckett is correct. Love, by the way, does not mean approval. Every parent knows this. If you reflect on this, you know love does not mean approval. I mean, if you approve of everything your 13-year-old wants to do, are you loving? No, you're unloving. You're enabling evil. And Beckett is claiming that if you tell people the truth, that is the right way to love people. And he is correct.
No, he's hateful, because you don't have to just run up and tell people what is your truth, which, by the way, is not the truth. It is your truth. There is a very simple rubric here that if you're a grown-ass person, you can apply. But if your mental maturity is this big, you won't understand it. People talk about truth. Hey, I'm talking the truth. I'm just telling the truth. Or as people have said before, hey, I'm just keeping it real, man. I'm just keeping it real. But you know what? There's a lot of shit that's true that doesn't need to come out of your mouth. There's a lot of shit that's true that you have no business even speaking. And if you're a grown-ass person who has any mental maturity or empathy or caring for your fellow man, you should not just be working off of this rubric of your internal truth. Since you are possibly mentally 2 years old, let me give you some help on this. There are 3 rules that you should apply before you ever open your hateful Christian mouth. They are this. 1, yes, is it true? Because we really shouldn't be lying, regardless of what it is we want to say to each other. But you should start with truth, yes. Now keep in mind, like I said, what you're saying is truth might be your truth. It might be the truth that was written in your crappy holy book by ancient men back in ancient times. But still, start with the truth. Fine. Okay, you hate gay people. Fine, let's start with that truth. Truth number 1. Second, is it kind? Because there's a lot of shit that's true, but it's still unkind to say it. So for example, my neighbor may walk out of the door this morning and her hair might look like absolute crap. It might be the worst damn haircut or the worst hairstyle I've ever seen in my life. And it may be my truth that her hair looks like shit. Should I run out of my front door and say, hey neighbor, your hair looks like crap today? I'm telling the truth. Why wouldn't I tell it to her? Well, first of all, because it's not kind. There is nothing kind about it, even if it is true. You don't have any need to run out and tell everyone every true idea that runs through your hateful little brain. You can keep some shit to yourself. But that's not the only rubric. Is it true? Is it kind? And is it necessary? If you can't qualify all three of those as being correct, it's true, it's kind, and it's necessary, then you should keep your little hateful Christian mouth shut. And now you might say, oh, but it's necessary because they're going to go to hell. Well, you know what? Did they come over all the time and tell you what Vishnu wants you to do to keep you out of Hindu hell? Did they come over all the time and tell you that you should be bowing to Mecca 3 times a day? Or do they just respect the fact that you have your own views and they have theirs? And maybe you can keep your own hateful, bigoted views to yourself.
In fact, when Paul talks about love in 1 Corinthians 13, the passage that everybody reads at their wedding, but nobody obeys, or few of us obey anyway, he says, love does not rejoice in wrongdoing. Love rejoices in the truth. Love always protects. Love always perseveres. In other words, if you're going to love people, you're not going to affirm something that is sinful.
No one asked you to affirm it. No one came around and said, hey, we need you to vote on this, whether or not it's good or bad. I mean, first of all, when it comes to television viewership, we all have a vote, every single one of us. It's a very simple vote. You turn it on or you don't. If you turn it off, you have cast a vote. If you turn it on, you have still cast a vote, just in the opposite direction. By all means, exercise that vote. But no one is asking you to affirm the choices that someone makes when they put people on this show. If you don't like it, don't watch it. But you don't have to spread your bigoted hatred all over the internet and all over the television sphere just to make everyone understand that, hey, I don't like what this person is doing. Love does not imply, and I don't care what Paul says, I don't care what Frank Turek's disgusting mouth says, love does not say that I need to barge in on my neighbors' lives and tell them when no one asked whether I think they're going to hell or not. That's not called love. That's called being a giant flaming douchebag.
You're not going to affirm things that drive them further away from the Lord. In fact, something that could keep them out of the kingdom for eternity, as Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians chapter 6. No, love doesn't mean approval. Love means you seek what's best for the other person according to the will of God.
No. Love means that you seek what's best for the other person when it is appropriate and when they actually want your help. Trying to actually impose your views on people doesn't bring anyone to Christ. In fact, it just pisses more people off, and it exposes you for what you are, a giant flaming bag of shit. The idea that Paul has given you some command, that you have to go out and shout down gay people having the nerve to live their lives and be seen on TV shows and to be seen in public, exposes you for the bigot that you are.
And affirming their sin doesn't do so. Normalizing their sin doesn't do so. And as I said before, we can do this without being an obnoxious scold. Now,
no, apparently you can't. You really can't. Because if you want to do this without being an obnoxious scold, you wouldn't make this an issue when there is just a gay couple on a television show that's not about being gay. It's not asking you to be gay. It's just the fact that you are pissed off that there are gay people in public and gay people on television shows, and you thought you were in your safe little Christian space. You thought you were watching this nice, homogenous, pseudo-Christian show where none of your ideals about society and there being no gay people would ever be challenged. And lo and behold, look what happened. They actually brought some gay people onto one of your shows. And now you're pissed off about it.
I don't think that Chip and Joanna are intentionally being evil. I just think they've been unwittingly influenced by the culture.
Listen to that statement. He thinks he's being so magnanimous. I don't think Chip and Joanna are intentionally being evil, which implies directly that they are, whether they want to be or not, whether they are intentionally doing it or not, they are in fact being evil, because in his worldview and in the worldview of so many Christians in America today, simply showing two gay people with their sons in an environment where they're not prostitutes or going to prison or crying because they're going to go to hell, but actually showing them as regular functioning people in society is what he thinks is evil. Chew on that for a minute.
And that culture, the culture we're in now, defines love as approval, defines disagreement as hate, and believes that judging is a sin.
I don't care what you think is a sin or not. Let me tell you what's being an asshole. When you feel like you have to interject your judgment where nobody asked for it. It's one thing if you have a Christian friend and maybe he's been experiencing same-sex feelings and he's confused about them and he's worried about being ostracized from the church, but he's also worried about what to do about his sexuality, and he's someone that you know and he's someone that trusts you. And if you want to talk to him about those things, then please do. Although I would hope that you wouldn't be as hateful as this asshole is. But if that's what you want to do, then talk to him and share your honest feelings, even if they're not approving. Don't be disgusting about it. But if you don't approve of it, just tell him and move on. But the idea that you have to interject yourself into this public discourse and tell everyone that it's so disgusting that they had the nerve to put a gay couple on TV exposes the fact that you're a douchebag.
In fact, I'm reminded of what my colleague Natasha Crane writes in her excellent book, Faithfully Different. She says that the modern mind, the modern secular way of thinking, and even many Christians adopt this way of thinking, and it appears that Chip and Joanna have as well, is to believe these four basic truths about life. These are the four basic truths. Number one, happiness is the ultimate goal. 2, feelings are the ultimate guide. 3, judging is the ultimate sin. And number 4, God is the ultimate guess. Happiness is the ultimate goal. Feelings are the ultimate guide. Judging is the ultimate sin. And God is the ultimate guess. In other words, we don't know whether God exists or not, so don't tell me you know what he wants me to do. That's essentially what Natasha is saying here. And why is judging the ultimate sin? Because if happiness is my goal and feelings are my guide, how can you judge my happiness or my feelings? Now, if you haven't figured this out yet, this way of thinking is from the pit of hell, okay? Because if we all followed our own happiness as our ultimate goal, I mean, murdering people might make us happy. Committing adultery might make us happy, at least temporarily. Stealing might make us happy. I mean, there's 1,000 different things that can make you happy. Taking drugs.
Do you hear this unapologetic asshole? He is literally happily equating anything that you want to do and any type of immorality with the idea that someone might be gay. He's equating murder with being gay. Hey, if you want to be gay because it makes you happy, then I guess maybe if you want to murder people, maybe if you want to steal. But this idiot can't understand and won't understand, doesn't care to understand that there are easily discernible, highly moral rules that are much more moral than any of the crap you find in the Bible, that can tell you whether or not these things are okay. If you are infringing upon the rights or the safety or the happiness, yes, of others, if you are threatening someone else, if you are possibly going to take away their life or their liberty, or you are going to commit acts that degrade the safety and the well-being of those around you, those are all obviously and demonstrably bad. You don't have to be some incredible moral scientist to understand this, although apparently you need to be something better than Frank Turek, because he doesn't understand this. He doesn't understand that there's a difference between two men doing whatever they want to do in the privacy of their bedroom because, yes, it makes them happy, versus me deciding to kill people walking down the street today because it makes me happy. And this idiot wants to equate these things. If you don't understand the difference between them, you shouldn't even be allowed in society because you are a danger to other people. You don't have to be a Christian to understand this. In fact, as an atheist, I understand this far better than Christians like this idiot right here.
Double-crossing people, embezzling from them. There's millions of different ways you could make yourself happy and sin at the same time, hurt other people at the same time. Feelings,
Who's getting hurt when you are involved in your consensual gay relationship? Who? I really like to know. Is it Frank? Maybe Frank's getting hurt. I mean, even if we believe the Christian mindset that they're going to hell for these private activities, then the people they're hurting are themselves. So keep your ugly, bigoted, disgusting nose out of it.
Ultimate guide? Man, if I trusted my feelings, I'd have been dead a long time ago. Feelings aren't the ultimate guide. Feelings might make life fun, but logic makes life safe.
Listen to this. A man who believes in an unprovable magic sky daddy and an unprovable eternal reward in heaven and an unprovable eternal punishment in hell by magic creatures like demons and angels. This person wants to preach to us about logic. Think about that for a minute.
You just can't follow your feelings without reason or without moral restraint. None of us would live very long. If we follow our feelings without reason, without moral restraint, we're going to wind up divorced, addicted, broken, alone, and probably prematurely dead.
So what does any of this have to do with gay people, a gay couple being on a television show? Listen to this imbecile. He is going all down this path of, if everyone just does everything that they like to do, which, first of all, I don't know how many people out there are just so happy and it makes them happy to murder others. I know that there are a handful of psychopaths in the world who would probably qualify under that statement, but that is not even 1/1000th of 1%. The majority of us have no desire to murder, to steal, to do anything else that's going to erode society. And he is talking about all this breathlessly in the same light as the horrible crime of putting a gay couple on a TV show and acting like it's not the end of the world.
No, we can't follow our authentic self. We need to be saved from our authentic selves.
And he's just the one to do it. He's the one to jump in and tell you what's wrong about your life, because I can't be trusted to read the Bible myself. I can't be trusted to make my own decisions about whether or not I want to accept Christ or whether I want to go to whatever you think I'm going to go to in the afterlife. No, he has to be the one to tell everyone what he believes God's word is.
Because our authentic selves are evil. They want what they want when they want it. Our hearts are evil. Our hearts will tell us we need something we don't really need. And it will tell us, our hearts will tell us, we need it right now. Judging is not the ultimate sin. Being judgmental is sinful. We'll get to that.
What?
But judging is required. And I'll explain why here in a minute.
No, there is no place in the Bible that it is required that you find every person in a same-sex relationship and tell them what you think is going to happen to them, or tell them that they should not be allowed on television. Tell them that they should not be allowed to live their life in public spaces without being harangued by the likes of you. That is not required by anything. That's just you requiring it because you're a horrible human being.
But God is not the ultimate guess. Without God, nothing would exist. I mean, let's put the word God aside for just a second, and I want you to consider a different way of describing God. God is the source and sustainer of all things. Who is the source and sustainer of all things? Who is the source of the universe and sustainer of the universe? Who is the source of you and the sustainer of you? Who is the source and sustainer of the natural laws to keep the universe going? Who is the source of the laws of logic and the laws of mathematics?
Yeah, we get it. You have never taken a dump without you thinking that it was caused directly by your magic sky daddy. There is literally nothing in the universe that you don't believe is all from him, including every thought, every idea of logic, every bit of maths, everything you think all comes from him. And that's great. Believe that shit if you want to, but don't use that as your basis to spread hatred to everyone else.
And the laws of morality that says you ought not murder people.
But you can do genocide. That's fine. You can do human sacrifice. You can do slavery. But this asshole is going to preach to us about morality. Really?
You ought to love them. Who is the source of all this? Who is the sustainer of reality? That's what we mean by God. Whoever that is, that's what we mean by God. There couldn't be an ultimate guess unless we were here to guess. And we wouldn't be here to guess unless there's a source and sustainer of all things. And it turns out that source and sustainer is the God of the Bible. And there's evidence that he is the God of the Bible. As we point out many times on this.
There is not a shred of evidence anywhere that your God exists. And even if there is a God, that it is the Christian God. Even if you want to tell me that your teleological argument and your cosmological argument and all of these other arguments that you've ginned up somehow prove God, they do nothing at all to prove the Christian God. There is not a single syllogism that you can point to that even gets anywhere near proving the Christian God other than because the Bible tells me so.
What Chip said in a tweet was disagreement isn't hate. And let me echo that, Chip, you're absolutely right. But you were absolutely right 7 or 8 years ago. Now it seems like you're saying that it's hate to disagree with same-sex behavior by the tweet that you put out a couple of weeks ago. So I'm a little bit confused because you got it right about 7 or 8 years ago when you said, hey, just because I may disagree with a particular behavior doesn't mean I hate the people. In fact, if you're going to love people, you have to hate some of the choices they make. If they're pulling them further away from God, or if those choices are harmful to them or others. Of course you have to hate that and should be against that. But the disagreement isn't the hate. The disagreement shows that you love them and you want what's best for them.
So I want to point out this disgusting disingenuousness around this argument he tries to bring up, which is that, hey, there's nothing wrong with having disagreements, but this isn't just disagreements. It's not like these gay people came on Chip and Joanna's show and Christian people sat around their kitchen table and said, no, I just don't agree with this happening, or said, no, I'm just not going to watch this show anymore. No, they've created this mini uproar, a tempest in a teapot, although it's probably a bit bigger than a teapot at this point. They want them to yank those people off the show, or barring that, they want the show canceled. It's not enough for them to say, I disagree with it. It's never enough for them to say, I disagree with it. It's just like Disney. These bass-backward Christians will try to say that we should boycott Disney, and Disney is evil now because they let gay people in their parks and they have pride stuff going on in their parks. It's not enough that they disagree with it. It was never about whether or not you disagree with it. We know you disagree with it because you are reading your book full of hatred. The issue is that you are then taking your disagreement and you are trying to thrust the decisions born of that hateful disagreement upon other people.
So Jesus doesn't say judge not, and he stops right there. Jesus says, judge not, lest you be judged by the same standard you judge others, you be judged by that standard. So before you try and take the speck out of your brother's eye, you hypocrite. By the way, notice that's a judgment, you hypocrite. Yeah. Take the log out of your own eye first, then you'll be better able to help your brother. Then he goes on to talk about don't cast your pearls before swine, which requires a whole nother series of judgments. Is Jesus telling us not to judge here? No, he's telling us to take the speck out of our brother's eye. That involves making a judgment. He's simply saying, get that problem out of your life first so you can then better help your brother. In other words, it's not.
The sad part is, I don't think he's entirely wrong, because it is true that many Christians will often throw this up there and say, oh, judge not, lest ye be judged. And they will stop it right there as though it's a blanket condemnation on judging. But that is not what Jesus taught at all. Jesus was all about judging. And the verse that he's talking about, or the verses that he's talking about, absolutely do prescribe that you essentially need to put your house in order so that you can then start throwing stones at someone else's, which is really a disgusting idea when you think about it. I mean, I'm all about you getting your house in order. I'm all about you getting your life right and doing whatever it is. But the moment that you think, aha, now I am righteous enough that I can start spewing my judgment out on other people, that is the moment that you become a flaming bag of shit. I don't care how righteous you think your life is. I don't want to hear any words from you at all about what goes on in my bedroom between consenting adults. I literally couldn't care less what your viewpoint is on it. And if I'm going to hell for that, then I will go on my own time and on my own path, and it has nothing to do with you. You are not going to save me. You are not going to have any impact on what me or any of my friends or colleagues or lovers do amongst consenting adults in a bedroom, and it's none of your damn business. And if you happen to notice when I'm in public that I have some behaviors that indicate to you that maybe there are these things that I do when I'm in the bedroom by myself, you can keep your damn mouth shut about it, because you have no business talking about it. I don't care how many verses that you read from Jesus. It is none of your damn business.
Not a command not to judge. It's actually a command on how to judge. Don't judge hypocritically. If you've got that problem, fix it, then go help your brother.
But think about the nature of men. He started this off by referencing the fact that your heart can't be trusted, that you don't know what you don't know. So the idea that you're going to get your house in order so that then you can go out and judge effectively still is intellectually ignorant. It is myopic to the nth degree. The idea that you think you can get yourself in the proper setup so that now I am qualified to go out and judge others just means that you're being a dickhead.
But it would be completely ridiculous to say don't make judgments. Why? Number one, it's a judgment itself. In fact, when people say, you ought not judge, I say, then why are you judging me for judging? You see, it's a judgment.
That's just a ridiculous circular argument.
So you got to point that out. So when people say you ought not judge, point out the fact that that is a judgment. And number two, you wouldn't live very long if you didn't make judgments. I mean, no matter where you are right now, as you're listening to this or watching this, you've made 1,000 judgments today. Judgments between good and bad, right and wrong, safe choices from dangerous choices. You'd be dead already if you didn't make judgments. In fact, Jesus says this elsewhere. He says this in John chapter 7, verse 24. He says, stop judging by mere appearances and make a right judgment.
This disgusting cretin of a subhuman is trying to tell you that judgment is so good because you're going to die if you don't constantly judge. And he's still tying this into the original point about a gay couple being presented, not platforming, just being part of a show with the Chip and Joanna show. So somehow he thinks that seeing this gay couple there and feeling in his little tiny broken black heart that that's bad and he doesn't like it somehow is equated to the fact that you have to judge, you have to make certain judgments every day to be alive. What part of that gay couple on the screen threatens his very life, threatens his existence, threatens his well-being? This is a ridiculous argument that has nothing to do with the original point that he doesn't like to see gay people in normal situations. If they're not sad and living a horrible life where they are reaping the horrible fruits of their disgusting lifestyle, he doesn't want to see it. He doesn't want to deal with it. And now he's talking about the fact that you have to make judgments to stay alive. First of all, the judgments that you have to make are like judging how fast the oncoming car is, or judging how wise it is to let this person into your house. You don't have to make any judgment about the gay couple on TV for any reason. You don't have to make a judgment on them to survive. You don't have to make a judgment on them for your own salvation, because Jesus never said, if you don't judge everyone else, I'm not going to let you into heaven. That is nowhere in the book. You don't have to judge those people at all. The judgments that he's talking about to stay alive have nothing to do with this conversation whatsoever.
Well, why does he say that? Because so many people judge on appearances rather than the truth. But he's not telling people not to judge. He's telling people to judge. In fact, you've got to make a judgment to be a Christian. You've got to make a judgment to be an atheist. You've got to make a judgment to be anything.
Well, I've made a judgment about this asshole, all right. You can bet that.
To believe anything. And atheists make judgments. They judge there's no God. Jesus didn't rise from the dead. There is no objective right or wrong. When you die,
there is... Okay.
By the way, you're just going to become worm food because there is no meaning or purpose to life. It's just curtains. You just become worm food when you die. Have a nice day.
That has nothing to do with atheist beliefs. Yeah, I hope that straw man keeps you nice and warm every night as it's burning in your fireplace.
These are all judgments, ladies and gentlemen. And they'll judge, by the way, that Christians ought not impose their religion on people. By the way, that's a judgment too. Why is that wrong to do? Who said?
Because it wasn't our command as non-Christians to stop judging. I love how he is just blatantly supplying this double standard.
The Constitution says. Why is the Constitution right? And did you get the Constitution right? We can't use religious principles to come up with moral principles? Is that what you're saying? And what's this standard? On one hand, you say that there is no objective right or wrong because you're an atheist. On the other hand, as soon as I cut you in line, you're upset.
So he has just conflated the idea of objective truth with whether or not you should be able to cut in line. So this is just such an epic straw man. This idea that if you have this philosophical idea about objective morality or objective truth, that there can be no rules, that everyone should be able to cut in line and everyone should be able to murder everyone else and there's no meaning to life and blah, 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 blah. None of this has anything to do with atheism. It is the most epic straw man, and he is having a bonfire. He's got the marshmallows out. They're going to have cake and cookies while they sit around the campfire and sing little Christian songs. He is toasting the hell out of this straw man.
Or as soon as I try to impose my religious point of view on you, you're saying that's wrong. Look, you can't have it both ways.
I'm not imposing anything on you, you dickhead. I'm not calling YouTube and trying to get your channel taken off. I understand that as disgusting as your thoughts are, you still have every right to be on here and do what you do. Just like you may think that gay people are disgusting, but they have every right to be on television shows. And those people who run those shows have every right to decide that they want to have a gay couple on the show. I'm not trying to interject myself into this hateful jerk's life.
There is an objective right and wrong way to live, or there isn't, but not both. And all of that, whether you believe it or not, requires a judgment.
He thinks he's being so brilliant.
Everybody's making judgments. We are, now, technically, we're not really the judges of right and wrong. In fact, many years ago, I was at the University of Michigan, and this question came from the audience. A young man said, "What do you think about same-sex behavior, about homosexuality?" And I responded, "It doesn't matter what I think. I'm not the moral arbiter of the universe. I don't determine right and wrong. I discover right and wrong. But if you want to know what natural law says and what the Bible says, well,
what natural law says. What does any of this have to do with natural law? He can't even define how this implies natural law whatsoever. And by the way, anytime a Christian starts implying natural law when they talk about same-sex relationships, they're about to get into some disgusting untruths.
Here it is. I think that's a key distinction we need to make. We're not judging that homosexual behavior is wrong. We're recognizing that it's wrong.
No. See, this is such a classic dodge, and it's disgusting. Recognizing it is seeing gay people and thinking in your mind, oh, I don't like that. I think it's wrong, which I still think would be disgusting, but everyone has their own internal dialogue. That's fine. Yes, you're going to make your own judgments. That's not what's happening here. This isn't you just recognizing it. This is you trying to organize against those people who have the nerve to actually be in a public space while being gay. How dare they?
Because the moral arbiter of the universe, the creator and sustainer of all things, has already said it's wrong because it doesn't comport with human flourishing. It doesn't procreate. It doesn't allow you to seek what's opposite in you, the opposite sex. It just fuels what you want as a man or as a woman, and that doesn't help you become more like Jesus. It also, in many cases, is unhealthy, as we've seen in many of the stats. So there are several reasons why God says this kind of behavior, even though you may want to do it and feel like you're born that way.
Feel like you're born that way. And now he's pulling up all this shit about human flourishing. Here is the very simple truth. Again, what I and my partners, you and your partners, what any adult people do who are consenting adults, whatever they do in the privacy of their own house, their own bedroom, whatever, is their own damn business. And I don't want to hear this flourishing crap. You know what? There are many, many financial decisions that you can make for yourself that an objective bystander might say, that's not a good idea. Maybe you shouldn't go to the casino tonight. Maybe you shouldn't put off paying these bills. Maybe you shouldn't put all your money in that Bitcoin scheme that somebody told you about. There are a million different ways to blow your money horrifically. That doesn't mean that you don't still have the right to do it and that you still shouldn't have the right to do it. Everybody needs to have the freedom to make their own decisions, even if Frank hateful asshole here believes that they're wrong, even if he believes or his God believes that they won't allow you to flourish. Saying that something is going to make you flourish is not an excuse for imposing it upon you. I might decide that your life would flourish the most if you were made to get on your knees, 24 times a day, every hour on the hour, and pray to God. Maybe I could make some objective case for how this would help you flourish. That still doesn't change the fact that it would be disgusting to try to force that upon others. Part of freedom, no, let me say it a different way. Part of being a grown-ass man, being an adult, is having the freedom to make your own choices. Now, that freedom rightfully should end when it infringes upon the freedom of others, despite his idiot sayings about how, if we did whatever we wanted, we'd do murders and we'd do stealing. No, there are simple moral laws that can and should be applied here. But as long as you are doing nothing that hurts anyone else and you are only doing things with other consenting adults, whether or not it helps you to flourish is none of his damn business. And quite frankly, it's none of his God's business either. Every human on this planet deserves the right to send themselves to hell. That is simple truth. And I'm pretty sure every Christian would agree with that. And yet, you want to sit here and rail about this like you should be interjecting yourself into the equation. No, I don't need your help. I will do as I please, and I will live by the consequences of my own actions. Now, you can get on your show or whatever, and you can complain about these things. But as soon as you start trying to affect the overall course of someone else's life, like trying to get this couple taken off of this show, you're now not just expressing your opinion, now you're being a certified grade A asshole.
That behavior is not helpful. That behavior is not good for you.
And it's none of your damn business, even if it's not. You know who's not my dad? Frank Turek is not my dad, and it's none of his damn business.
I'm trying to love you by pointing that out.
We don't need this hateful crap that you disguise as love. Nobody needs that kind of love. Take that hateful, sick, disgusting excuse for love and shove it right up your ass.
I'm not the arbiter of right and wrong. God is. I'm just recognizing.
Well, maybe you should let people meet God then and get yourself out of the equation.
We are not to judge right and wrong, but we are to helpfully point out, judge, or recognize, if you will, when another Christian violates God's word. We're not the arbiters of right and wrong. We just often are the ones that have to point out that somebody is violating God's word.
Yeah, they have to point it out because God forbid that somebody pray, or God forbid that, the Almighty himself actually do something and stop being so damn hidden. No, Frank feels like he has to point it out. What a global level douchebag.
Or natural law, same thing, just same source, just different ways of knowing. And if you disagree with that, if you say that, you should not judge false teachers or teachings, you know what you're doing? You're making a judgment. If you're saying you ought not judge me for what I do, you're making a judgment. You're judging me for what I'm doing.
This disgusting little ruse he has to give him this get out of jail free card to judge whomever, whenever he wants. That, if you say anything about it, then you're judging. So no, you can't do that. That is just so dishonest that it's disgusting.
You're doing the same thing that you claim I ought not do. If I were to say to you, you ought not do behavior X, and you say, you're doing wrong for telling me I ought not do behavior X, you're just telling me I ought not do behavior Y, which is telling you you ought not do behavior X. Is that clear, by the way?
No, the only thing that's clear about it is that you are using this completely dishonest little circular mind trap to try to justify every lame judgment that you want to dole out on everyone else. He seems completely incapable or unwilling of making the very simple distinction here, which is that there is a huge difference between judging someone for doing something that is harming someone else or undermining the safety or the security of other people versus making this hissy fit of a judgment just because somebody had the audacity to put gay people on one of your television shows. And he can't understand the difference in this at all. Because ultimately, when it comes to moral, intellectual facilities, he's just not a grown-ass man.
You see the point? Everybody's making judgments. No matter what side of any issue you're on, you're making judgments. Even if you say, well, I don't know the right answer. That's a judgment.
How is that a judgment? That is not a judge. Stating, I don't know what the right answer is the antithesis of a judgment. How many brain cells did he bring to his show today? I mean, it's not all of them. It's not half of them. I wonder if he just pulls a handful just on standby, like, oh, I've got to do the show. Let me grab a handful of brain cells so I can get through it, because nothing he's saying is making any logical sense. Telling someone that you don't know what the answer is a judgment? No, it is not. By simple definition, it is not.
That's a judgment. You're saying I don't have enough information. No matter what position you take on a moral issue, or even an issue of fact, other than morality, you're making a judgment. Judging is unavoidable. So Jesus didn't say don't judge. He said judge not lest you be judged. By the same standard you judge others, you be judged by that standard. He's not telling us not to judge. He's telling us don't be hypocrites about it. If you've got that problem, fix it, then go help your brother.
This is so disingenuous here because he's talking about Jesus telling us fix something before we work with someone else. Christians love to do this with the gay community because for so many Christians, they were born straight. Not all of them, of course, but for so many of them, they were born straight. They've never had a same-sex attraction. So it's very easy to sit there and say, well, my house is in order. I've never wanted to be with another man. So here, let me go judge your lifestyle, you horrible gay person. And that is just so disingenuous. There was nothing for you to get in order in your house because Frank, and I don't know anything about his personal proclivities, but he was probably born straight. He probably has only ever been attracted to women. Again, probably. I don't know his personal life, and I'm not going to go there. But the fact is that at least outwardly, he's only ever had a desire for women. And for him, of course, he can say, well, yeah, I'm righteous here. Now I can judge other people because I'm not having a same-sex relationship. So let me judge you for having your same-sex relationship. Christians seem to be completely oblivious to the fact that the analogy of this would be if I were to judge you for being in a straight relationship. Now they'll say, well, but you can't judge me for that. That's what God wants us to do. But the point is that if I were gay and then I said, well, I'm going to judge you for being in a straight relationship. I mean, you can't change being straight if that's who you are. You can't pray the gay away. You can't pray the straight away. That crap doesn't work. But since he was ostensibly born straight and he hasn't had desires for any same-sex relationships, it's very easy for him to get way up on his mighty Christian high horse and rain judgment down upon everyone who ever has had a same-sex attraction.
Now, how can you do this with family members or others you're close to? They don't want to hear it. I think one thing you can say to them, you can ask them a question. Say you have somebody who's involved in an illicit relationship and it's not the right thing. You can ask them this. Hey, if I was doing something that was hurting me or others, if I was doing something that was violating God's will, would you love me enough to tell me? And then just be quiet. What are they going to have to say?
Or you could just be quiet, period. You could just shut your damn mouth. Because I'll tell you what, if I were involved in some kind of relationship like that and Frank were my family member and he came and tried to ask me that question, the conversation would not go well. Trust me.
Yeah. Okay. Can I do that for you now? Now, they may not want to hear it. Okay. It's not your job to convince them. It's just your job to be faithful.
What do you think is going to come from a conversation like that? If you have a family member involved in some kind of same-sex relationship, you can tell them all day that it's not what God wants. You can tell them that it's a sin. I mean, I can tell you some things that will come from it. You will ostracize them. You will possibly endanger their mental health. You will absolutely endanger the value or the strength of any relationship that you have with them today. But if you think that just telling them it's a sin or that it's not God's plan is going to magically make them stop desiring the same sex or magically make them put away all of those desires and stuff them into the closet, then you are even stupider than you look. And even if that did work, because he gave this example at the beginning of someone who apparently is gay, but then became Christian and now scolds other people for putting gay people on TV, which, by the way, what a horrible traitor. But even if you do that, that's disgusting. Let's take all of your natural proclivities and stuff them down so deep so that you become this repressed, disgusting individual for the rest of your life. That's what you want for them. Shame on these people.
It's not your job to enable them in their sin, to affirm them in their sin. It's your job to be faithful because you love them and because you love God. Look, love isn't love if it's telling a lie. And that's what you do when you affirm people you know who are going down the wrong road.
I want you to think about the analogies here. You know, what if my book says that to be white is an abomination to God? And I tell you, I love you. So I have to tell you, this is not right with God. You might think, well, what am I supposed to do? I'm white. I'm like, well, you can put on makeup. You can put a show, or you can wear a costume. You can do something to hide your whiteness. And that's what you should do every day for the rest of your life, because my book says that being white is an abomination to God. Who is really going to want to hear that message? And who is going to think that you're not a complete asshole for telling them that?
I mean, if you think about it, being kind without truth is like building your house on the sand. Without God's truth as the foundation.
Because of an inborn desire is the antithesis of being kind. It is absolutely the definition of being a hateful asshole.
Chip and Joanna are just putting shiplap and flashy fixtures on a house that's going to collapse on the people living in it.
Because God's truth is, if you don't openly hate gays and tell them every chance you get, then somehow that's going against God.
I don't know if you saw the Babylon Bee had a headline after all this happened. It went something like, Chip and Joanna launch new Pride-themed shiplap. It was all rainbow shiplap behind them. The Pride collection. Yeah, Pride goes before the fall, as you know.
That is such a sad, stupid line that Christians keep pulling up. Let me tell you something. If you have made it this far and you are not an asshole of a Christian, but you want to start becoming an asshole, tell gay people pride comes before the fall. If you want to prove just how much you don't understand or have empathy for anyone else in your environment, tell them pride comes before the fall. That is just proof that you have no empathy and that you are a grade A asshole.
So look, I love Chip and Joanna. I think they've been great representatives, at least up to this point, of how to be a joyful, fun, Bible-believing Christian family, at least from the outside anyway. But I sure hope that they repent of this obvious sin of affirming sin in other people and trying to normalize something that God is completely against because he loves people.
God is completely against this because he loves people. That's why God is completely against this. This is classic Christian gaslighting 101. Why does God hate you? Because he loves you. Why does God want you to go against the very nature that God put into you? Because he loves you. Yeah. Nothing says gaslighting like Christian, bigoted, LGBT hatred.
Look, we're all born with things we ought not do. That doesn't mean we ought to do them. Now, we can go into the born that way argument if you want to. We don't have time on this program. I write about it in Correct, Not Politically Correct, about same-sex marriage and transgenderism. By the way, it's not a Bible case. I'm not quoting Bible verses in that book, but if you want to go deeper, you can get that book right there, Correct, Not Politically Correct. But I sure hope Chip and Joanna come to their senses and realize that the road they're going down is not the right road. And I know it's difficult, especially in the entertainment industry. You know, my mentor, Dr. Norman Geisler, used to say this, and he was right. He used to say, fraternity will nearly always overcome theology. What did he mean by that? He meant that often relationships will overcome, in most cases, what you believe about God.
And where he's going with this is that he wants you to destroy those relationships in favor of his make-believe magic sky daddy that he can't touch or feel or prove on any level. But he wants you to destroy your relationships in favor of his imagination.
Because you're more interested in maintaining a relationship. You're more interested in a relationship with someone you have here than you are with God.
Yeah, because the relationships that I have here actually show up. They actually exist. They help me on a daily basis. They bring me pleasure. I bring them pleasure. We have fun. We support each other. I actually know how to get a hold of them. They answer me. They are not hidden, and they have not been hidden for thousands of years. They don't ask me to repeatedly reference a book from 2,000 years ago to understand whatever it is I would want to hear from them in regard to today's issues. And yet, he's surprised that the people who are around me who actually exist in real meat space have priority in my life over your imagined magical sky daddy. Shocking.
Look, we're fallen creatures. This is easy to understand why this happens, but it's basically idolatry. You know, you may say, yeah, I'm against same-sex marriage, but as soon as your kid comes home and says he's gay and he wants to get married, a lot of parents throw Jesus and the Bible under the bus and say, oh, well, now we're gay affirming.
Yeah, because they actually love their kids. Because they realize that my kid is here and this imaginary person in this ancient book says I should hate my kid. And when faced with that reality, the people that aren't disgusting actually realize that, oh, I should still love my kid.
So much for true love, so much for following the truth wherever it leads, so much for denying yourself, so much for not my will, but your will, so much for I love you, Jesus, more than anything else. It's no, I have another priority, and I think this is the best way to deal with it. Fraternity will almost always overcome theology. When you're working in the entertainment industry, you might see a lot of people that disagree with you, and they seem like nice people, and they are, but that doesn't mean that their sexual practices are something you ought to promote.
That doesn't mean you should give a shit about their sexual practices. Their sexual practices are their business. Maybe you should stop thinking about anyone's sexual practices whatsoever other than your own. The idea that Frank Turek thinks he has any business at all making any judgment at all on my sexual practices or yours or anyone else indicates how bankrupt this whole system is. So that's enough of this hateful crap, but I want to leave you with one more thought. He talks ad nauseum about how horrible it is that there are gay people on his TV and gay people in the world, and how the only thing that we can do is tell them how they're going to go to hell and how they're sinners, and we need to pass judgment upon them. But think for a moment. Think deeply and critically about why it is that gay is wrong, but other sexual practices are not. Now, imagine this. Right now, if you look in your Bible, it doesn't say anything about whether you and your partner can engage in impact play. Maybe you like to be spanked. Maybe you like to do the spanking. I don't care. That's your own business. I'm not getting into it. However, if these old-ass Hebrew men in ancient times had really been aware of this concept of impact play, of the idea especially that maybe a woman would spank her husband because he likes it, what do you think those old-ass ancient Hebrew men would have said about the practice? Now, you can tell me all day that you think that this is God's law, but let's be frank, and not Frank Turek. No. But let's be frank about this. These sexual laws are in Exodus and Leviticus and Deuteronomy and such because this is what old-ass Hebrew men were aware of. They knew that there was male-on-male sex happening. So they felt like they had to address it as an abomination. But I don't think they even had the concept of other kinks, impact play as an example. But if they had, do you really think that there wouldn't be a law in Leviticus right now saying thou shalt not spank thy partner? Because you know damn well there would be. Maybe you're a man in a loving relationship with your wife, and maybe your thing is you like for her to put on a strap-on and you like to be pegged. Not my thing, but hey, I'm not going to yuck anyone's yum. What you do in your bedroom is your business, as long as we're all consenting adults, right? And that's not covered in the Bible. You can say, oh, God didn't explicitly deny that we can do this. He didn't command against it, so I guess we can do it. But you know damn well that if those old-ass Hebrew men in ancient times had even conceived of the idea that a wife might peg her husband, they absolutely would have put that down as an abomination. The only reason there aren't more things explicitly denied from our bedroom activities in the Bible is because there was a limitation on the knowledge and the imagination of really old Hebrew men who wrote these scriptures thousands of years ago. These aren't God's laws. These are the laws of old Hebrew men in the Bronze and Iron Age. And the things that they knew of that disgusted them, they could write down to try to blot out of existence. But there were other things that they hadn't even considered. They hadn't considered that maybe you like it when your wife spanks you, or you like it when your wife pegs you, or you like doing role play, or anything else that you do in the bedroom between consenting adults. Nowadays, most Christians even would say, well, that's your own business because God doesn't say anything about it. But the only reason that God didn't say anything about it was because the old-ass Hebrew men who wrote this crap down in ancient times didn't think about it themselves. Otherwise, there would be even more things banned in the Bible. So the next time you get on your high horse and you want to start talking people down over the horrible crime of being gay, stop and think about why those crimes, those moral abominations, even exist in the Bible in the first place. This has been a long ride, I know. If you're still with me, then I appreciate your patronage very much. Like, subscribe, do all the things. I'm happy to have you here. I hope to see you on future videos. But until I do, lo, I say unto you, stay skeptical.